Hello and welcome back to Wyrd Wessex. My name is Craig.
And my name's Andy. And today we are going to cover something that we've kind of talked about before in our questioning about the existence of ghosts. Right back to the early episodes, we were talking about one thing that held up our belief in ghosts would be, where are all the animal ghosts? We just get ghosts of people, but realistically we don't. There are plenty of stories about ghost animals, and some are
I
tied
think when
into.
we had Patrick on, we even suggested at one point that maybe dogs see dog ghosts and cats see cat ghosts,
Yeah, we did, but then
etc. Yeah.
again, research in this episode, we've hopefully learned, otherwise it's going to be a pretty short episode, that people see animal ghosts. Some of those animal ghosts are tied to people ghosts, and some are pretty independent. So yeah, and I think you had one that was kind of relevant talking about early episodes, didn't you?
Yeah, so when I was researching, I found a story connected to what we talked about on episode 4 when we did Poltergeist, and I covered the Penhill Poltergeist. Do you remember that
Yes.
one? And we were talking about all the different cases of poltergeist that happened on the same couple of streets on the same estate in Swindon. And just by chance, before we started recording today, I was just flicking through my folklore book and I found this extra little tidbit which ties in with the animal thing. Um, so uh, on the estate in Penhill, there is a road called Penhill Drive. And a spiritualist named Anne Riley used to live there with her dog and her cat. Now, sadly, both the pets passed away. But shortly after the death, she reported seeing the dogs and the cat's apparitions wandering around the hallway. Eventually, Anne moves house and a new family moves in, a family of 4. And their experience is a bit more unsettling because they encounter apparitions of both the dog and the cat. But additionally, they report objects moving. And on one occasion, one of the children felt an unseen force pin them against the wall. Anne, upon hearing of the family's experience, believed it was one of, or possibly both of her deceased pets lingering. However, the intensity of the events, like the child being pinned, suggest a more malevolent presence. So,
That's
frightened by
in,
the activity, the family ultimately left the house. And as we talked about on the previous episode, the council called in an exorcism.
and did it work?
There's no further reports after that. But as we said on the previous episode, there are multiple stories from the same. I think they were almost 10 years apart, weren't they? All the stories that I found.
Yeah,
Sort of every 10 years, something came up.
that's interesting. I was going to say, if it wasn't, sort of for the kid getting sort of pinned against the wall by the force, I was going to say the things being moved and falling off. I'm just imagining this ghostly cat just like knocking things off the tables and things.
Yeah, that's it. I just thought it was interesting that it tied into what we've done before. I don't know how I missed that last time, but it ties in better with what we're doing today, really.
So I've got quite a few on ghost cats actually. That seems to be a fairly common one. I didn't really rank the animals in like the most commonly seen as ghosts, but I started to just through the research I was doing for this, and cats are a fairly common one, which is kind of a an interesting point in terms of folklore, because you do get a lot of cats in folklore that aren't necessarily the ghosts of house cats, but you know, spectral big cats, all sorts of things. So my first one is this one takes place across the pond. In Washington, D.C., it's said that a demon creature stalks the basement corridors of both the White House and other government buildings, like the Capitol building. Apparently, this thing can change shape and size. It's got glowing red eyes. It's been shot at and escaped unharmed. It's even apparently killed someone with a heart attack. It is the demon cat of DC. In the 1800s, cats were brought in, like in most places, to keep buildings free of mice and rats. But not too long after that, and this was in the early 1800s, late 1700s, the sightings first started. This was supposed to be a black cat with glowing red eyes that was seen stalking the depths of these government buildings, watching people with malice. It had powers as well. It could dramatically increase and decrease its size, from a house cat size up to the size of a tiger. Some reports even saying as big as an elephant, sort of 10 feet tall and nearly as wide, which would be pretty
About
terrifying.
me.
What's that?
Yeah. I said, fuck me.
Yeah, I know,
The
right?
size of an elephant.
Cat the size of an
Jeez.
elephant. Imagine the litter tray you'd need. So yeah, this thing would apparently snarl and leap at people that had seen it. So it's not just there, it's leaping at you, but before it got to you, it'd always disappear. In the 1890s, the sightings had kind of reached their peak, and a lot of people were seeing these. Some guards were actually actively out hunting it. Um, Now, one of these guards who was, I don't know if he was looking for it or just patrolling the corridors, but he saw it and apparently straight afterwards dropped dead of a heart attack. The guards weren't really in the mood to play games with this kitty anymore. So when they next saw it, quite soon afterwards, they unleashed a volley of fire at it, and they didn't hit the cat, but it disappeared for a while. But it didn't end the sightings. Eventually, it started coming back. And while they became less frequent, it still appeared as it had before, not just randomly, but apparently in times of distress, national crisis. It had been seen during the Second World War quite a bit, as well as just before the assassinations of both Abraham Lincoln and JFK. So there's been a lot of debate over what the cat is. Some people say it's a demonic presence that's attached itself to the seat of power in Washington. Other people think that it might be the ghost of one of the cats that was initially brought in that just didn't want to leave after it died. Although I've never heard of many ghosts ballooning to that size. A chief tour guide has a different idea on it, though. So, according to a chap called Steve Livengood, who's the chief tour guide of the US Capitol Historical Society, he says that what people used to do is they'd appoint congressmen back then, a little bit of shady dealing. They'd just appoint friends and relatives and give them cushy jobs. One of the easiest ones to get them was security staff in the Capitol building and in the White House. Um, and these guys, it was a bit of an easy job for them as well because they weren't going to get fired because they knew very important people that got them in. So they happened to start drinking on the job, as was quite popular. And they think they just got spooked by cats. So they might have, yeah, just had a cat brush up against them and surprised them. It might have been they saw one sort of running across and they thought it was this ghostly thing. Um, there is one other point as well. When these rumors started spreading around, people were actually taking it quite seriously in terms of realizing that it was frightening people. And there are reports that people were given the day off after seeing this thing to recover. And of course, once a guard hears that someone's had the day off because they saw this ghost cat, they're sort of saying, "Oh yeah, I saw that ghost cat as well. I was so frightened. I better have the day off." And apparently, it was a bit of an easy way to get a day off. Um, so yeah, that is the ghost
Hmm.
cat of DC. So it's a great
Is
story.
the growing thing is the bit that is the
Hmm.
weirdest, I think. The fact that it can grow to the size of an elephant.
Yeah, I've never encountered many or any ghostly reportings that have said that, that they could grow in size.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I
then,
don't know where that bit had come
hmm,
from. Or maybe it's
no,
just one of those tall
I can't.
tales. It's like, oh, it was massive. Oh no, it was even bigger when I saw it.
Yeah. I
It's
wondered if they were like seeing the silhouette of it, like a shadow, and as it comes
Yeah,
towards you, it grows
potentially.
up the wall.
Old
Um,
gaslights can do funny things. Like the shadows cast from them.
yeah. It makes me think of Father Ted
Oh yeah, this cat is
with the
small, that
cows.
one's far away.
Yeah.
This cat is big. This one is very close.
Actually, there is one other big, big cat story that I've read about.
Oh yeah.
Um, is that it? It's actually up in. It doesn't grow, but it's up in Scotland, up at Arthur's Seat by Edinburgh. Um, and there was a police report. They were out looking for a missing person, um, and they had an officer on the ground. And the guy that was flying the helicopter reported seeing a big cat that was 3 times as big as the officer on the ground.
Damn.
Yeah, which is pretty big.
And that's a policeman saying that.
Yeah.
Not that they can't, see
Um,
random weird things either, but. Okay,
I can't
well,
remember how long ago it was. It must have been a few years back, but
that's,
yeah.
yeah. I wonder if it grew to that size or whether it just, it was always that size, just a big cat ghost or big cat.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a
That's an
that's a fucking big
extra
cat.
big
That
cat.
is. That's I'm not sure any big cat gets three
Yeah.
times the size of a. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, the next one is described as big, but smaller, I'm guessing, than that. So the next one takes place in Ireland, in the mountains, just near Dublin. Now, there's a ruin of an old hunting lodge that was built by a wealthy landowner named William Connolly. Now, William Connolly was a politician, a state owner, and the legend goes that he pulled down the stones from a nearby cairn to help build this lodge, this sort of stone lodge of his. And the locals immediately didn't like that. They decided he was cursed for doing it. It was a bad thing to do. And they seemed to be proven right a little while later when a great big storm came in and damaged the building and blew the roof right off. And shortly afterwards, William died. The plot thickens, however, when the land was supposedly rented by members of the Hellfire Club. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the Hellfire Club, they were a group, sort of a society of nobility, wealthy, and influential people who all gathered together and had a reputation for hedonism, drinking to excess, gambling, sexual deviancy, with a bit of smattering of esoteric and dark arts, really. They were active in.
Made famous by Stranger Things.
Yes, yeah, that's it. I mean, I knew about it beforehand. Um, wasn't a D&D group in America, no. Um, so yeah, they got together, and it was mainly just like a bit of a drunken opium smoking pervs club for rich people. But they kind of like it was around that era when they liked dabbling in the dark arts and things like that. Now, the legend goes that someone stumbled across a sort of ritual that they were taking part in. Now, this ritual apparently involved them sacrificing a black cat. It just so happened that the guy stumbling across the ritual was a priest who proceeded to quickly exorcise the cat as it was being killed. So its soul escaping didn't turn into a demonic entity, therefore, kind of ruining their plan. A little while later, the place fell into ruin. There is actually a legend that will just add here, even though it's not about ghostly animals. That a stranger in a cloak turned up one day with a hood on, and they invited him in to play their card game with them. And they were playing cards with this guy, and this guy was doing very well, and wouldn't take his hood off. And when one of them dropped something under the table, they went to under the table to get it, and saw underneath the table that he had cloven hooves. Big uproar, and apparently the devil then caused the roof to collapse and hurting a bunch of people, and the place just kind of fell into disrepair. That's the legend attached to that. Either way,
That's still
whatever.
animal related. He had cloven hooves.
There you go. There you go. So the Hellfire Club then moved to another nearby hunting lodge called Killikee House, which also is in the sort of Dublin sort of area, County Dublin. Now, a large black cat is reportedly has been many times seen haunting the premises. The reports actually spiked much later in the late 60s and early 70s when Margaret O'Brien and her husband Nicholas were converting Killikee House to turn it into an arts centre. Not only did they report seeing this cat, but apparently several tradesmen who were working on the site just upped and left before the job was done, before they were paid, after seeing this cat and seeing it stalking them. They described it as being a large, big cat, but with burning red eyes and black fur. It could be another ghost. It could be sort of a demon, although most people seem to think that he is the spirit of the cat that was sacrificed by the Hellfire Club at the other hunting lodge. Torn sort of between the devil and hell and heaven, it sort of remains in this plane, haunting the last known location of the group that had tormented it in life. So yeah, that is the Hellfire Club cat, which I like that one. I quite like that one.
I can't get the devil went down to Georgia out of my head since you've mentioned that story.
The devil went down to yeah, Dublin.
Dublin.
There's one more quick story I'd like to do, which I found on Reddit as I was looking for ghostly cat stories. And I wanted to end on a slightly
Oh,
nicer
yes.
one.
Go
My
on then.
big cat bit. So there was someone asking who had apparently seen a ghostly cat in their house. It didn't go into much detail, this story, but someone asked if they had any other, if anyone else had had any encounters with ghostly big cats. Now, this is from a Reddit user I won't name, but they said, I've had one experience with a ghost cat, and I'm just going to read this word for word. And at the time of the said experience, I didn't know it was dead. Um, it was my neighbour's beautiful tortoise shell Rosie. She'd always loved our garden and could almost always be found napping or lazing around in our front and back gardens. And we love cats so much, so we never had a problem with her. She had a really distinctive muted meow as well. It was both very quiet and quite high pitched, and it always sounded like she was sort of forcing it out. And she'd do it as a hello and a greeting. And I know if you had a cat, you know exactly that kind of meow, that sort of greeting meow they do. As she was passing through, and she saw that I was about. Anyway, there was not another cat in the neighbourhood like her at the time. I came home late from work. I work in a bar and it was Friday night, so 1 to 2 a.m. And had a cigarette in the garden outside, with the outside light turning on. She walked her usual route through the garden, around the side of my motorbike, looked at me, did a little meow, and sauntered off into the night, and I thought nothing of it. And as I said, she was very frequently around. The next morning, I'd go to take my bin out. My neighbour comes out in tears saying Rosie had died the day before at about 4 p.m. and died on his kitchen floor having a seizure. Now, obviously, discovering this had me gobsmacked. I absolutely, with 100% certainly seen her that night, a good 9, 10 hours before she had passed away. And while it is sad because a cat dies, I really like that one. I find that one quite heartwarming, and I've heard just through word of mouth stories similar, like, pets coming to just say goodbye on their way out. And I kind of really like that
I have
one.
an anecdote for you.
Oh, yes, usually it's me with the anecdotes. Hit me.
No, I've got one. I'm not going to hit you. You're too far away. Um, so, as has been mentioned on this show before, as people remember from Beltane, my dog died. Um, and on a couple of occasions, I've heard him.
Really? That's
On one particular morning, I woke up in the morning, I was just doing the usual scrolling on my phone. And in the morning, he used to come up the stairs. We've got wooden stairs, so you can hear like the patter of the feet on the stairs. And I heard that one morning.
wow.
Other times I've just, heard him like he used to like bark in his sleep and stuff. And I've heard that from downstairs. And not, that's weird. So maybe he's still around.
So a lot of people have, when they have reported these things, especially with cats and dogs, it is usually the sound. It's the sound of the feet, the sound of a bell, or the sound of their meow or bark. You don't often see them, but you hear them. So yeah,
Mm.
that absolutely fits with a lot of other sightings.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's just sounds that you're used to hearing. I know we're generally quite skeptic on the show.
That's it.
So,
I don't know where my notes have gone. There was someone that divided ghost animals. There was a separate notes that was on my way home from work today, and I saved them on my phone, which I'm now using as a webcam. But they divide animal ghosts into ghostly animals and ghost animals, and ghost animals sort of come down into the spirits of pets that are aware, they know what they're doing, they'll knock things over. The sort of the imprints of pets, ones that will just do the stuff they did in life without walk through walls, not recognize people. And then there's the other branch, which are
Yeah.
like heralds of doom and, sort of other entities and things like that. But yeah, one of the common ones is just sounds and kind of noises and calls that they would have used in life, as well as them walking through things. So, it's that kind of them going where they loved so much in life.
Noise.
Nice. So that's all I've got about ghost cats for the moment, unless you've got anything else to add to that.
No, no. We can move on to chickens if you like.
Yeah, why not? It's a bit of a jump, but
I have a fairly random story that I found on ghost chickens. It's fairly brief. In goes back a few years, 1626.
ooh,
Sir Francis Bacon was consumed by a scientific curiosity, and he embarked on a bizarre experiment. He determined to find a new way to preserve food, and he opted for a radical solution: freezing it. So he ignored the warnings from his associates, and he bought a chicken, killed it, he gutted it, and he stuffed it full of snow. Side note there is, tragically, after a couple of days, he got pneumonia and succumbed from that
oh
after doing
wow.
this. That's just a brief side note. That's how Sir Francis Bacon died. But the story doesn't end there, because since that fateful day, spectral sightings have plagued Pond Square in London, which is where it happened. The ghostly form of a chicken, some say half plucked and forever frozen, manifests on misty nights. Witnesses report a frantic circling apparition that vanishes the moment anyone approaches. The legend has endured for centuries. Air raid wardens during World War II swore they saw the spectral bird dart through a solid wall. And even in the 1970s, a startled couple witnessed the chicken materialize in midair as they shared a goodnight kiss.
Wow.
It's a
After all
good one.
After all that, the life that he lived, Francis Bacon wasn't the ghost that came back. It was the chicken that he killed and died trying to preserve.
Upstaged by a chicken.
You could say he preserved it forevermore, you know,
Yes.
but trying to freeze it, I don't know. I reckon he might be onto
Yeah.
something there.
Yeah, it seems like a fairly sound logic. I wonder whether we got anywhere with that.
I think we need to go on a hunt for the ghost chicken.
There's 4 of them outside that window. But they're not ghosts. I hope they're not. They're looking at me.
Yes. Your wife's going to come in and be like, "We haven't had chickens for years, Craig. I told you. Take your pills."
So as that was fairly short, I thought I'd do another one, which isn't a chicken story. But our journey into the world of ghost animals would be remiss if we didn't talk about this particular case. And it's fairly well known, so I've written a fairly brief overview of this one.
Yeah.
It takes us to the 1930s on the Isle of Man.
Oh,
Do you know where this is going?
I think I do. I think
The Irving family.
Yes.
James, Margaret, and their 13-year-old daughter, Voirrey, became entangled in a bizarre phenomenon known as Jeff, the talking mongoose. Jeff's story is shrouded in mystery. Scratching and talking noises emanated from the walls, which led the Irvings to a startling revelation. The voice belonged to a self-proclaimed mongoose named Jeff. I have occasionally heard people say Geff, but I'm pretty sure it's Jeff. I mean, it's spelled G-E-F.
Is it a GIF or is it a GIF?
Yeah. So he was supposedly born in 1852 in faraway New Delhi in India. But was Jeff a real talking mongoose or a mischievous poltergeist, or perhaps, as some like Nandor Fodor suspected, he was a figment of James Irving's imagination? The Irvings maintained that Jeff was an extra clever mongoose and an earthbound spirit, or even a ghost in the form of a mongoose. Jeff, they claimed, was surprisingly helpful. He acted like a household guardian, extinguishing unattended fires, keeping mice at bay, and even waking the family up if they overslept. Now, despite the skepticism, the Irving family never wavered in their stories. However, tragedy struck in 1945 with James's passing, and Margaret and Rory were forced to sell the farm at a loss due to its haunted reputation. In a shocking turn of events, the new owner, Leslie Graham, claimed to have shot and killed Jeff in 1946. But questions arose because the displayed body was larger than the known Jeff, and it was black and white, raising doubts in Rory's mind. Until her death in 2005, Rory adamantly maintained that Jeff was real.
I mean, for a start, if you had a talking mongoose, why would you shoot it? And, or secondly,
Proof.
where are all these mongoose coming from on the Isle of Man?
I told you, New Delhi. It's a bizarre story. I know it's been fairly well covered on other stuff, which is why I kept it brief. There's even I don't know if you've seen the recent Simon Pegg film.
I haven't seen it. I knew it had been made, but yeah. Well, so I'm guessing Simon Pegg was voicing the mongoose.
No, the mongoose was
voiced by Jeff.
Yeah, voiced by Jeff, the talking mongoose. Have you got any more for us?
Yep, I do. So, but this one does take place in London. And the Tower of London. You ever been?
No, I haven't.
Worth a visit. It's good. So the place we should
go. Is that your review on Google Maps? Is it?
Yeah.
Worth a visit. It's good.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's all right. So I mean, we should go there because it is no stranger to ghost stories. So from rebels and criminals to Anne Boleyn, there's been loads of sightings throughout its history, which is about 1,000 years. The first version of it was built by William the Conqueror. So most of the ghosts are related to the royalty and the criminals that were calling it home. It wasn't just home to royalty and criminals, though. It was home to a zoo. The menagerie at Tower of London housed all sorts of animals dating way back to shortly after it was built. But it had snakes and reptiles and crocodiles all the way to bears, lions, and elephants. 2 people were actually killed as a result of those animals while they were there. In the 1600s, a lady called Mary Jenkinson was killed when she attempted to go and stroke one of the lions or a lioness in a cage. And she was mauled and died during a botched amputation of her arm. And then a century or so later, a sailor that was helping transport some baboons that were for the tower or for the menagerie was killed by apparently a baboon getting loose, picking up a cannonball and lobbing it, or like a small one, and lobbing it at this poor sailor's head.
Oof.
So between these dangers and the sanitary conditions that were sort of happening in the tower and money running out, eventually sort of halfway through the 1800s or getting on halfway through, it was closed down. The animals were all moved out. But it wasn't just the ones that were there that were dangerous. It was the ones that had been there before, apparently. So in 1816, a yeoman warden, which is, a beefeater to us, was doing his rounds one night and he passed quite close by a tower called St. Martin's Tower. Now, it was quite late, but he wasn't expecting anyone to be around. So he rounds the corner and he sees a shape out the corner of his eye. Now, he thinks, it's probably one of his colleagues or someone that lives in the tower. There's quite a few people that live there. And at worst, it's going to be a trespasser. So he comes round to bear on it, looks straight at it, and before him is a massive bear. Now, the shock you can't imagine. There was a bear at the tower at the time. There were still animals at the tower, and this bear was called Old Martin, actually named after the tower he was near. But it wasn't that bear. This thing was bigger. That was a black bear. This thing was much bigger. And his training sort of kicked in at that point, to be a beefeater, to be a yeoman warder, you've got to have been in the military for a long time. And he instantly brings his gun to bear and thrusts it forward with his bayonet on the end, thinking, I'll at least try and slow this thing down. Now, a bayonet's not going to do much to a bear. But this bayonet did nothing. It actually passed through the bear and embedded into the door just behind him, the wooden door. At this point, this poor yeoman warder, he drops the gun, sort of staggers back, and the bear, before his eyes, disappears, vanishes. He ran, he woke other guards, he told them all about it, and then instantly, more or less, he fell ill, and in a few short hours, he had died. And the coroner's report apparently put the death down to death by fright. So again, probably a heart attack, much like the poor guard in the White House, seeing that demon cat. So yeah, the bear wasn't obviously the bear that was in town. This wasn't Old Martin. Interestingly enough, Old Martin's skin, a little while ago, his skin and skull were found in possession of by the Natural History Museum, and they then gave them back to the tower. But this was not Old Martin. He was locked away in his cage. They did find out, though, that a polar bear, which matches the size and description that this guard sort of stuttered out to his colleagues, was kept at the Tower of London back in the 1200s. It was a gift to Henry III by the King of Norway. So yeah, perhaps this was the apparition that poor warden saw, but it does seem sort of the animals had, even though most of them had gone, they did manage to claim one last victim. So yeah, that's one of my kind of favourite Tower of London stories, actually. With all the ghosts there, that is probably one of my, even though it did sadly result in a death.
Actually, as you were talking about kind of like a menagerie of animals at the tower there, I do actually have a zoo story, which I was going to do later. I was going to do pigs next, but if you like, I'll quickly chuck the zoo one in now.
I'll do it, yeah.
So this one's across the pond again. So this is the Griffith Park Zoo, which is in LA. It opened in 1912, but was abandoned in 1966. And the ruins of the Griffith Park Zoo are now a popular hiking spot and picnic area. But it transforms into an eerie expanse at night, and the ruins hold a palpable sense of unease. There's strange animal sounds pierce the night, echoing in distress from the long empty cages. Ghost hunting groups have flocked to the site, drawn by these unsettling cries. The unsettling atmosphere seems fitting considering the zoo's controversial history. In its prime, the animals were confined in cramped cages, suffering from poor diet and rampant disease, especially during the harsh years of World War I. The silence of the empty cages is broken only by phantom growls, roars, and moans. Spectral forms of emaciated lions and elephants with infected, oozing wounds are said to pace restlessly within the cold, artificial confines. However, the hauntings extend beyond the restless spirits of the animals. A legend whispers of a phantom sow and her piglets, forever searching for food. On foggy nights, their ghostly cries through the rooms, a constant reminder of the park's troubled past. Now, some believe that a curse was placed upon the land by its original owner over 150 years ago. And I think this fueled the misfortunes of the site. So there was a Don Antonio Feliz. He was a rancher. And he allegedly fell victim to a deceitful land deal orchestrated by a local politician and his attorney. Upon learning of the treachery, Feliz's niece is said to have unleashed a curse upon the politician and his family, and the attorney's subsequent murder seems to validate the curse's power. Ever since then, the site has endured a string of misfortune: a failed cattle farm, devastating floods. There was a couple that was tragically crushed by a falling tree. A deadly wildfire once claimed the lives of over 30 workers at the park.
Oh.
And there's been various murders and things in the well over the years. So it seems like there might be a curse upon the site, which maybe led to the misfortune of the zoo as well.
That's an episode in itself right there. And also, it's a nice cheery story you got there, man. That's wow.
Yeah, I was saving it for the end, but probably best I got that out of the way.
Come on, cheer me up with something now. You must have something a bit lighter than that. That's I need to look into that more.
Yeah. I know that was a kind of rabbit hole I went down because I sort of, oh, there's a ghost zoo in LA, and then suddenly you're like, oh, it's a curse and all this murder and death. Oh, yeah. So something lighter, you say? I'll go back to what I was going to do. Pigs.
Pigs.
There was a pig in that story, but on Dartmoor, a vast and misty expanse is said to be haunted by a phantom sow and her piglets. The spectral family has roamed Merry Pit Hill for over 200 years, forever searching for food. On nights thick with fog, you might encounter them wandering the desolate roads, their forms shimmering in the gloom. Legend whispers that these restless spirits are drawn to Cator Gate, lured by the promise of a dead horse to feed upon. But the journey is always in vain. Upon reaching the gate, they find the carcass picked clean by hungry crows. The haunting takes a chilling turn with the spectral pig's ability to speak. The piglets' voices echoing across the moor cry out,
Skin and bones, skin and bones.
a lament for their eternal hunger. And the soul's mournful reply,
Let 'em lie, let 'em lie.
seals their fate as they turn back, condemned to roam the unforgiving landscape forevermore.
Oh, I like
How's that? Cheerful?
I mean,
talking
no,
pigs.
but also kind of that's given me big sort of kind of Black Phillip with Thou Like to Live Deliciously kind of vibes. It's like talking pig. That's some very, we need a Robert Eggers film about that.
So I have a couple of other sort of short pig bits as well whilst I'm
I'll have
on
some
pigs.
pig bits. That's what you buy in packets.
You have some pig bits. So on Christmas Eve in Calcutta near Cricklade, there is the spectral form of some tiny piglets with glowing red ears that kind of cross the road. That's as far as that one goes.
Back to those red ears,
Yeah.
If it's not glowing eyes, it's red ears.
There's another one of a sow that haunts Pig Lane in Bishop's Canning. Weirdly, said to tirelessly push a mysterious barrel across the road.
So is it named Pig
Nobody
Lane
knows why.
after the pig that's there?
It's unclear. Unclear on that one. And then at Manningford Abbot, there was a woman at a rectory that witnessed a scene. She was gazing out her window at night time, and she saw a woman driving a pig across the lawn. But then they both just disappeared before her very eyes. And then, just for good measure, I've got one last piece, which is slightly further afield again. So this time we're going to Sweden. Have you heard of the Glosson?
The name rings a bell.
So while British pigs evoke a lot of sadness, and there's these pigs searching for food and that kind of stuff, the Glosson from Sweden chills the soul with pure terror. This is no ordinary ghost pig. It's a monstrous white bull with glowing red eyes that can sometimes multiply into hundreds across its body. Its spine is said to be a jagged, nightmarish blade, and some tales even mention ghostly piglets accompanying the fearsome beast. The Glosson is a bringer of misfortune, preying on those who wander the misty roads of southern Sweden. Those unfortunate souls who encounter the Glosson's face a grim fate, for the creature leaves only misery and fear in its wake.
Jesus Christ. Wow. That's that's messed up,
That balances the scales a bit.
I feel pretty unfortunate if I cross one of those things.
This sounds like a feral wild boar to me.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so that was a cheery pig story to end that segment on.
Yeah, it's as I say, it's more terrifying than than sad, I guess. So it's an upgrade.
That's it for my pig segment. Over to you on what you got next.
So I'm going to talk about Gigi's. I'm going to talk about horses. So I started off with a lot of ideas for ghost horses. Now they're one of the most sort of commonly reported ones, really, alongside dogs as well. But But I think that's due to the amount of ghostly riders that you hear of. It's always a headless horseman or a ghostly carriage going along, or the sound of hoofbeats, or tack sort of jingling. It's always accompanied by people. So I was going to throw in some of those, but I feel like they're kind of playing second fiddle to the horse rider in those instances. So I'm going to avoid those ones today. And
All right.
even though I think they do come under ghost animals, and I'm going to focus on horses that have kind of thrown their ghostly riders and are doing their own thing. In 1408, the Battle of Bramham Moor was the last battle of the Percy Rebellion, which was where the Duke of Northumberland was defeated and slain by royalist forces loyal to Henry IV. Now, it's said the dead of this battle haunts the current day Bramham Park, which is in Yorkshire. But this isn't slain knights or men-at-arms or anything like that, but rather their mounts. Now, they're more often heard than seen. People have reported hearing when walking across the park at night and the mist is rolling in, hearing these hoofbeats, like lots of the hooves thumping on earth of many horses, but they've seen none around. Occasionally they are seen, and they're described as pale horses with long flowing manes and flowing tails, riding across the fields. Now, they look so lifelike that some people assume, and maybe they are, real horses, but the fact that no one sort of says they own them when they're reported, sort of running around loose, and also they seem to sort of just appear and disappear at random, never leaving a trace. So that leads me into my next one. So there's a place called Edge Hill, and on a conveniently named road named White Horse Road, which is indeed named after this spectral figure of a horse that is seen so often there. Now, it's been seen galloping across the fields close by. It sometimes crosses the road, but it tends to be galloping alongside the road, along the fields. Now, keeping with that battlefield theme, it is very close to the site of the Battle of Edge Hill, which was the first real big engagement of the English Civil War. Now, this horse is seen galloping to and from the direction of the battlefield, which is just sort of down a slope off the hill. Now, there's two kind of legends that have been attached to this horse. Some people say it's the horse of Prince Rupert, who was the cavalry commander at Edge Hill. And he was a very impetuous sort of young man who had fought in the 30 Years' War, and he was very much, up for big, flashy cavalry charges. And he did manage to survive the battle. His life was in danger many, many times. I don't know whether his horse was killed or not, but he apparently was riding to and fro, trying to break the parliamentarian lines to no real success. The other rumour is that it is belonging to a man named Captain, I've got his name written down, Captain Kingsmill. Now, Captain Kingsmill was one of the senior officers in the parliamentarian forces, and he did actually die in action, his horse with him, at Edge Hill. And so some people attribute that legend to the horse they see. They think it's his horse sort of maybe riding up and down looking for his master.
Is he who the bread is named after?
I'd like to think so, probably. Couldn't be a common name, right? Now, the last one I have of ghost horses, I've just picked three. There are loads of little ones, but this one I quite liked. And it comes with a name that I'm going to butcher because it's Welsh. It's Brydymain, which I'm not quite sure where that is in Wales. An anonymous source told a collector of ghost stories a terrifying encounter he had with a ghostly horse while he was driving to work one morning. In his own words, he wasn't driving a car that was taxed, and so he decided to take the back roads by Brydymain to try and avoid police, essentially. And so he's driving quite fast because he's on his way to work this morning. And from out of nowhere, leaping over this hedge, so you narrow road, hedges either side, leaping out of this hedge is this massive white horse. And it's so close and so big, he describes the point where he knew he was going to hit it. The thing's chest filled up his entire windscreen. And he got to that point where he just knew he wasn't going to be able to avoid it, but he slammed on the brakes anyway, closed his eyes and just waited to hit the thing. The car went into a spin, and then he opened his eyes, and there was no broken glass, no bloodied animal lying in the road. The verge, nothing had been interrupted. It was all still. It was like nothing had been there at all. So, feeling a little bit self conscious and embarrassed, he keeps this to himself. But he does tell a few people, one of which is a trusted colleague at work, who then relays to him a similar story that his son had encountered on that very same stretch of road. He describes pretty much the same thing. He's out driving with his girlfriend. They go around the corner onto this stretch. White horse leaps out straight towards them. They spin the car around, end up in the verge, in the hedge, and nothing's hit them, nothing's there. Apparently, his girlfriend was so upset she actually needed to be taken to hospital and checked for shock, because just completely shocked her system. This event happening, thinking she was going to die, thinking she was going to hit this horse, and then not only that rush of relief still being alive, but also the fact that there was no horse there in the first place, but they'd both seen it. Now, some people started, sort of the rumours flung about when this got out there. It could have been a horse killed running across the road one day. Other people pointed their finger further back in time and into the depths of folklore and mythology, things like pukas and kelpies and things like that. No one really knows what it was, but there was apparently, although it's kind of been hard to find an actual bit of evidence for this, workmen on site a few years later, I think it was, actually found a very large, what they described a very large equine skull beneath a stretch of road very close by when they were digging and doing roadworks. So yeah, that which, if that is true, that is quite a coincidence if it happened after that skull was found. But yeah, so those are my horse stories.
We actually we had a comment on our YouTube channel this week from a new subscriber, and they mentioned that they'd seen a ghost horse once. They are supposed to be emailing me, so hopefully in a future episode we can include a bit more detail on that one.
Yeah, I mean, we always welcome stories coming in. That's a very relevant one. We can always tack that onto, as you say, onto the end of another episode. Again, I'll put it out there. There are loads of ghost horse stories. A lot of which have got riders, but some are just horses. But they always seem to be white horses, and I don't know whether that's the ghostly element or just maybe it's a herald of something.
Yeah.
They quite often seem to be white horses.
Which we covered in a previous episode.
We did, actually. We did. That and giants with their todges out and things like that.
So I was going to end on something
Ghost
slightly
hamsters.
less exotic. No.
All right.
You're going to keep guessing, or do you want me to just tell you?
Go on, tell me.
Ghost monkeys.
Ghost monkeys, that was going to be my next guess.
Yeah. I've got 3 ghost monkey stories, and they're all weird, conveniently.
That's what people would expect, I imagine.
So the first one is at Carew Castle in Pembrokeshire. A Sir Roland Rees, a 17th century tenant known for his travels, brought back an exotic pet from the Barbary coast, an injured ape. Now, legend says he trained the devoted creature to obey his every whistle. However, tragedy struck when Sir Roland's son eloped with the daughter of a local merchant named Horwitz. Infuriated by his defiance, Sir Roland's fury manifested in the stormy night outside. The wind howled like a banshee around the castle, rain lashed at the windows, and the ape within echoed its master's dark mood with restlessness. A pounding on the oak doors shattered the tense atmosphere. It was Horwitz, his face etched with worry and anger. A heated argument ensues, fueled by Sir Roland's disapproval and Horwitz's desperation, and in a moment of unhinged rage, Sir Roland unleashed the ape, commanding it to attack the unarmed merchant. Horwitz, though wounded, fought back with the ferocity of a cornered animal. He managed to escape the ape's clutches, collapsing in the hallway with a desperate cry for help. And as the terrified servants tended to his injuries, Horwitz, fueled by pain and betrayal, unleashed a curse upon Sir Roland. A blood-curdling scream pierced the night, echoing from the tower room. Fear paralyzed the servants, preventing them from investigating until dawn's pale light crept in. And when they finally dared to enter the chamber, they found Sir Roland lifeless in a pool of blood. The ape, however, had vanished without a trace. Legend whispers that on stormy nights, the anguished howls of the ape can still be heard around Carew Castle. Carew. I can't say Carew. Carew Castle.
I like that one. That's a good one. That's begging to be turned into a book or a film.
Athelhampton Hall is where we go next, in Dorset. Have you heard of Dorset?
I've been there a couple of times.
The Martin family crest, depicting a monkey perched on a tree stump, hints at a more chilling story. Legend speaks of a spectral ape haunting the halls, the restless spirit of a pet long gone. The Martin family embraced this pet, granting it freedom to roam the house. Tragedy struck when one of the Martins' daughters, consumed by a broken heart, sought refuge in a hidden chamber within the house, and the loyal ape, perhaps sensing her distress, followed her unseen. The daughter took her own life, unaware that her furry companion had witnessed the act. The search for the missing girl must have been frantic, but by the time they discovered her hidden sanctuary, it was too late. The ape, trapped within the secret room with no way out, had succumbed to starvation. While the spectral ape remains unseen, its presence is undeniable. Scratching sounds echo from the concealed panels, a chilling reminder of the ape's desperate attempts to escape from its eternal prison. The Martin family motto is, "He who looks at Martin's ape will look at him." Kind of takes on a haunting new meaning. Yeah. There's another cheerful story there.
Yeah, wow. It's don't have a pet monkey, I guess, but I don't know. I see why people, especially back then, wanted them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, again, it ties back into what we were saying about keeping big cats, doesn't it? On the big cats special we did
with apes, it's kind of that human-esque nature they have that endears people to them and find them fascinating, you know?
So I've got one last monkey story to us first to end on. The Monkey Man of Shropshire Union Canal.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, the Monkey Man of Shropshire Union Canal. I actually found this on the Canal Trust website.
Okay.
The original story. Yeah. It's described as a hideous shaggy creature with eyes like burning embers and is said to appear near a double-arched bridge, which is known as Bridge 39. The claims that the Monkey Man is a restless spirit of a boatman who drowned in the murky depths of the canal in the 19th century. One particular famous encounter occurred in 1879 when a weary labourer returning from a late night journey found himself at Bridge 39 on a frigid January night, the air thick with the sting of frost. His horse was tired and the darkness pressed in heavy. As he neared the bridge, a horrifying sight unfolded. A strange black creature with enormous eyes lunged from the roadside shrubs, landing with a thud on the horse's back. Panic seized the labourer. He lashed out with his whip, but in a scene ripped from a nightmare, the whip passed right through the creature. So overcome with terror, the labourer fell from the cart, the frightened horse bolting into the night with a spectral figure clinging to its back. Shaken to the core, the man took to his bed for days, but when he finally returned to the bridge, his whip lay where it had fallen. As recently as the 1980s, a family on a canal boat holiday reported seeing a huge black hairy monkey staring down at them from the bridge, but it disappeared as they passed from one side of the bridge to the other.
That's creepy. Nice.
So, trip to Shropshire next.
I think so. I mean, yeah.
For the Monkey Man.
I wonder why he turned into a monkey.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of weird folklore things, isn't it? It doesn't actually explain. It adds more mystery rather than less.
There is, I was just going to add, there is, I was just looking at where it comes from. It's Cambridgeshire, the shug monkey. Have you heard of that?
Nope. So
I won't go too far into it because I do want an episode on cryptids and things at some point and sort of other folklore creatures. But it's supposedly, it's got sort of a mixture of features of a dog and a monkey. and it's near Balsham, I think, and it's got this sort of like kind of like a doggish body, but a sort of monkey's head. Um,
All
yeah,
right.
and as they think its origins are sort of like kind of similar to black shuck, or black dog, tied with some Norse mythology stuff. I don't know where the monkey head came from, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think? Do you believe any of it? Do you have you got an easy explanation for anything else?
Yeah, it's all ghosts. They're all real.
Fair, job done.
Is
They've all been dropped
that
off.
cough medicine?
No, it's malt beer.
Oh, super malt.
Yeah.
It looked like you had like a cough medicine bottle you were just swigging throughout the episode.
Yeah, it's
No, but seriousness, I don't know. I don't. A lot of them, I think, particularly the longer form stories, fall more into that folklorish element.
yeah,
They're
they've
kind of
taken
bizarre.
that element of like, sort of like those cats with the glowing eyes, that harks back to earlier folklore of, sort of, as you say, things like black shuck and stuff like that.
And you could potentially explain castle walls creaking and scratching noises, that are being
Yeah.
blamed on ghost monkeys, potentially. Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm probably on the fence. I think some of them, yeah, maybe there's something in it, and other ones are more in the folklore camp.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the bear at the tower. That kind of was sort of the guy genuinely died of like a heart attack from fright. Um,
Yeah.
but then again, there's a bear there already. You see something, your mind plays a trick on you. Could have had that heart attack and then killed over a few hours later when he realised it was nothing. Lots of explanations. But I also like the idea
Yeah.
that there are ghost animals walking around there as well.
It's as valid as a human ghost, I think.
I want the ghost elephants from the Claudian invasion in 43 AD because they used elephants to attack Colchester. They didn't need them; they pretty much steamrolled the sort of the British tribes at that point in that area. But Claudius needed a very public victory, and so he decided to go very all out on it. And the Roman army stopped before they went into Colchester. So it's like, oh, the emperor better come and help us with the final push. Didn't need him at all, but a bit of PR. And apparently, just to make it look really impressive, he brought elephants with him as well. So I kind of like the idea that maybe some of them didn't end up back in Rome. They died over here. They're buried around Colchester somewhere, and you might get the odd, ghostly elephant walking around.
So yeah, one other thing before we do weird news.
Yes.
I was watching the X-Files yesterday. As you know,
I'm watching X-Files. That's unheard of.
Yeah. And it was one, I think we've mentioned it before. It's the one where Scully ends up doing an autopsy on an elephant.
Yeah.
I love that episode. And there's like invisible animals that
Yeah,
are
the
like
invisible
the
gorilla.
elephant stampedes through invisible tigers, and it turned out they were being abducted by aliens. Spoiler.
Spoiler, you ruined it now.
But I can't work out. I thought maybe I was missing something. Is why they were invisible. There's like a gap in the logic. Like, yeah, they were being abducted by aliens, but why were they invisible for a period after they came back?
I'm gonna have to watch that episode again, see if I can figure it out.
Yeah, I don't think they ever explain it. I think they were just like aliens.
Aliens
That'll
did
do.
it.
Yeah. So, have you got any weird news? I know you've got weird. Why did I say have you got any weird news? We do this as a segment. We've been doing it since like fucking October.
One down, just say no. Sorry.
No, the news is out of weird today. Today we're recording on the day when there was a big announcement by Rishi Sunak that we've made contact with aliens. Was it?
Yeah. Called a press conference, and we are like, sort of, maybe it's going to confirm alien contact, but it was just an election.
No, it's that. No, it's slow disclosure, you see, because the election's going to be on the 4th of July. What's the 4th of July? The
Independence
day Will Smith
Day.
killed the aliens.
That's it.
See?
Somehow I
They're
can't
just
imagine
seeding us.
Rishi Sunak climbing in a fighter jet and leading the charge against them.
Well, no, he won't do it himself.
Plus, I think you got to be above 5'5" to be a fighter pilot. Um,
He might send his wife or something.
So I do. It's a bit of a grim one, but it's definitely weird. It's
right.
from the Daily Mail. Again.
We need to like ban you from the Daily Mail because all your stories lately are Daily Mail.
Yeah. All of a sudden I'm so I'm finding these weird news stories in the Daily Mail all the time, and I'm also convinced that giant spiders are coming over here from France and you're paying for it. And whatever else the headlines are. No, so it is one from the
Well,
Mail.
I am.
I had an option of a few, but this one interested me. Grieving daughters claim psychic medium led them to their missing mum's body after police bungled the search as eerie paranormal details are revealed. So Teresa Jones, 56, disappeared in February of last year in 2023. Her grieving daughters enlisted a psychic as Louisiana cops struggled on the case, and they claim medium Caroline Clapper led them directly to their mum's body. It goes on to say this was in Wisconsin. The psychic medium comes from. And Ashley Deese, the daughter of Teresa Jones, 56, said police have been stumped over her mother's disappearance and criticised their investigation that was seemingly solved once medium Caroline Clapper stepped in. She went missing on February the 2nd, 2023, and Ashley said that she spent hours searching for her mother alongside Union Parish Sheriff's Office K9 unit. Days later, Ashley and her sister Brittany reached out to Clapper in Wisconsin, who is well known among the psychic community over her claims of finding missing people. Ashley claims she was able to provide eerily accurate details leading to the body, remains unsatisfied as cops never spoke to the medium and ruled the death as an accidental drowning caused by methamphetamines. It's been a year now since this happened, and she has so much information pertaining to this case, she said. Goes on to show pictures where her body was found in a creek. After contacting Clapper, Ashley said that Clapper returned the request with a midnight phone call and offered help pro bono. Over a 45-minute conversation, Ashley claimed the psychic gave her precise step-by-step instructions on how to locate her mother's body, which lay in a creek close to her home. It's unexplained how the K9 unit in extensive searches did not find the body, which appeared to be only a short distance behind Teresa's property, around 200 yards into the wooded area there. Describing what her psychic visions apparently told her, Clapper said, there would be a log. She kept showing me this pronounced log, a very big log in the woods. It wasn't just little twigs and sticks. It was a log, a huge one. You hit this log's basically what she said. You get to this log and my body will be there. There's water. I saw a creek. Following the phone call, Ashley said she went out looking for her mother and claimed the medium's eerie accuracy even detailed the position of her mother's body and its deteriorating condition. I immediately got ill, shaky and sick and started vomiting. Despite her mother's body being found face down in the creek with no undergarments, Ashley criticised the investigation. She said there was no rape kits or fingernail scrapings were administered to the remains, and it goes on to complain about the police a bit and how they never spoke to Clapper, even though she was giving this information. The office later said that it did contact the medium, but noted the evidence claiming to be discovered through some form of paranormal powers are not legally admissible. Clapper said she found this approach strange, however, as in her past cases helping find missing people, she's been questioned by police departments. Even if they don't believe in psychics or they're skeptical, they still follow us on leads. So they'll still have questions for me if I know too much about a case and they can't really explain how I know the details or I know about the case. It's their job to follow up. And then it goes to talk on a little bit more about the state of the body and stuff, which we don't really need to know. And the fact that her daughter is insisting it's probably foul play. I don't want to dismiss it offhand, but you also sort of think, well, if that's true, you would sort of start thinking, yeah, the police would at least say, how do you know so much about this? How did this woman tell you exactly where the body was going to be? But
Mm.
yeah, I mean, it used to be a bit more common practice, actually. Like a lot of police departments were a bit fast and loose with how they, got evidence and what they spent their money. And, sometimes they would contact as a point of,
Yeah,
sort of,
Hinterkaifeck. When
yeah,
they in
exactly.
Hinterkaifeck, they send the heads to clairvoyants.
But yeah, it's an interesting one, I thought. Anyway,
Mm.
come on, tell me you got something lighter than dead relatives and creeks.
Yeah, well, I've got something funny we can end on. We're after this. No, I'm not saying this is funny. This, but this will roll into something that we'll end on a lighter note.
Go on then, I trust you.
So, I mean, it's not dark, but it's just that the ghost of Matthew Perry visits ex-friends co-star Courtney Cox.
Oh, okay, that's a bit lighter. Go on.
So I mean, he didn't die long ago, so it doesn't feel like we should be like making light of it, does it? But you know, um, I've just put some cliff notes to be honest, because most of the articles I've seen on this are very brief. I think it was something she said on maybe a talk show or something recently, and it's been
Yeah.
turned into 100 articles. So yeah, the sitcom star Courtney Cox claims she's frequently visited by the ghost of late friends co-star Matthew Perry. Cox 59, you can tell they're bulking the article out there, revealed she can sense when her late co-star's spirit is around. Perry, who played Cox's on-screen husband in the hit sitcom, was found deceased in a hot tub at his LA home last October. During an appearance on CBS Sunday Morning, the 59-year-old actress, again, they've mentioned her age, why, candidly spoke about being guided by Perry's spirit. I'm so thankful I got to work so closely with him for so many years. He visits me a lot. But this is an interesting quote, I think. It says, he visits me a lot if we believe in that.
It follows up with if we believe in that.
That's the quote. He visits me a lot if we believe in that.
Huh.
Yeah. So Cox then went on to claim she speaks to loved ones that have passed, including her on-screen husband. She talks to her mum, her dad, and Matthew. She says, I feel like there are a lot of people like that, I think, guide us, she explained. I sense Matthew's around for sure.
I guess it's how you take that, as you say, like if you believe that,
It's an odd
is it
thing to say.
their
Either she
actual
does or she
ghost,
doesn't.
or is it you just feel their presence in what you're doing because you were so close to them?
So the reason why I said there was something light and funny to end on, I don't even know if we can get away with playing this video, but we're going to try.
Go on then.
We might have to skip through because it's about 15 minutes long. We'll do the highlight reel. So I saw this headline outside the local shop on the newspaper and I Googled it. And when I Googled it, it turned out that several years ago, there was a fan-made episode of Friends where Chandler is dead and he comes back as a ghost.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's made up of clips from other episodes, and it's it's. I'll just show you, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
On last night, eventually the weather is going to catch you.
Anyway, you get the point. I'll just like pop a link if anyone does want to watch any more of that. We'll pop a link underneath. But I thought it was pretty shocking. But
Yeah, it's a strange one that.
yeah,
Suppose it was a Yeah, one in what, six chance they were going to make that episode about one of them, whoever was going to be the first one to die, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, that was 7 years ago, or at least that particular version of the video. 2.8 million views.
I wonder how many of those within the last few months. On that note, I think that's about it from us today.
Yes, so I'll do the quick usual thing. So social media, you can follow us at Wyrd Wessex. You can email us with your weird stories if you want something included in the show, which is weirdwessex@pm.me. We've got merch available on my Redbubble store, which has got links below the video and on the audio description. What else have we got? We've got a Discord, which has currently got 3 members. 2 of them are me and Andy. It's looking quite sad. So if you want to join Discord, do that.
Don't keep us company.
And we've got Patreon, where we do post early episodes and the odd bonus video as well.
Yeah, that covers it. So thanks for joining us again. And until next time, stay weird.
And Chandler.